You know, every time I speak, they come and try and arrest me. So what am I supposed to do, you know?
Yeah, you're rolling.
So, okay, we got cut off, and this is basically, I'm just going to do a quick summation of the whole story. Human immunity is governed by two things. One is antibodies, the other is T cells. T cells are a type of what they call lymphocytes. They protect you as a long-term memory. Antibodies are short-term. We have always had to that comes from infection from previous coronaviruses. Those who are vulnerable, about 20% of the population, for example, in Germany or in England or in America, those who are vulnerable are those with immune-compromised systems, probably the aged. Young children are completely there are different strands of coronaviruses, multiple different ones that infect different animals. These strands mutate and change, and they are viruses that have been around for millions and millions of years. It is false to assert that the molecular clock dating systems that are used to measure coronaviruses and their history are accurate. These molecular clocks are based on what is called empiricism, typical British scientific method actually, empiricism. Only look at what you can see, not at what's behind, underneath the surface, you see. The consequence of that is they detect only the leaves from the trees and then think they found the whole tree. Whereas actually they miss the branches, they miss the trunk, and above all, they miss the root. Root is the origin. They do not know the root. You can find the root by looking at the same method. You remember Charles Darwin, when he looked at the evolution of species. He went to the Galapagos Islands because these islands had been separated, and the animals that he investigated were different. Not just the birds, of course, birds could fly in theory, but tortoises were different. And they were different on the different islands because at some stage they had a common evolutionary background and they were separated. That separation allowed him to study mutation and transformation driven by evolution. That is the method that we need to use to understand the origin of viruses, by looking at the different species that can be infected by viruses of common clades, common types. Then you can investigate what the actual origins are. And you'll find that they don't start in the Neolithic with the agricultural revolution. They begin way back, almost certainly the Carboniferous, which was a period when the Earth was much warmer than it is now, where CO2 levels were very high, and where this causes CO2, as you know, they all say, if you talk to your plants, they will grow. CO2 is the main agent of creating life. It makes plants grow 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times faster. Now, how many viruses are there? Well, it's calculated that there are more than 100 million times more viruses on Earth than there are stars in the universe. If you took the viruses on Earth and laid them out one next to another, they would stretch for 200 million light years. It's estimated there are over 300,000 viruses that can infect mammals. We have found 1,400 pathogens, that's microbes or bacteria or viruses that can infect man. We found about 320 viruses that can infect man and cause them one type of, either improve their health or worsen their health. But that's all we found. We've only started looking recently. We've only had the tools to look recently. Science should not begin with the arrogant assumption that what we've just found is the final answer to everything. On the contrary, science should begin by asking, how much do we not know? And then work on that principle. We have found a little thing here. That's important, maybe, for a case in a hospital here or a case in a hospital there. But that has now become, it's like a driving force for global political economy, for global dictatorial measures and all the rest of it. And it's all based, quite simply, there's a phrase that was used by the famous lung doctor, Dr. Wolfgang Wodark. And he initiated this for those people, and I keep getting told by everybody, the vaxxer. He's a monster. Here is a report from the European Parliament, approved by the European Parliament, presented by Wolfgang Wodak, who was an MP at the time, a German socialist MP, and by Paul Flynn, a British Labour MP. And in 2010, they presented this report to the European Parliament, which exposed that the swine flu was a swine flu hardly affected anybody, hardly killed anybody, and yet was declared a pandemic by the WHO. And when they declared a pandemic, all the governments in the Western world ordered drugs, they ordered and they injected, in countries like Sweden, 67% or more of the population. And of them, in Europe children came down with from the administered in the name of fighting swine flu. And this was exposed. This is an official parliamentary report recognising that swine flu was and the who was responsible. And therefore, eventually, there needs to be an official inquiry into why the world has been driven into this in the name of healthcare. It is complete and absolute insanity. It has no basis.
Have you heard they've just said that in Russia the bird flu has been found in...
I know, the bird flu, they always say a new bird flu. The reason they're doing this is because now they've got these tests they can adjust to anything. They can make an 2 weeks and they can put a new code into this that's supposed to protect you from that. The problem is it may well exacerbate the illnesses. I'm worried because many people have taken vaccines and they may well be more susceptible to the real virus when it comes around next year or the year after or the year after that. That's a real danger, and I don't think anybody's monitoring that. And there's no indemnity. Of course, all said no indemnity, the government must pay, and so they're completely free. Anyway, I've been speaking for a while. That's basically what I wanted to say today. I will put these reports and links to them underneath the post that I made today. In particular, I will go back to Zhong Nanshan's report that shows that SARS never disappeared. Never disappeared. And it was known that SARS never disappeared. And yet they all claimed it did. And so the whole story is a... That's it.
All good.